Hey guys, welcome to a brand new video. Today we are going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be doing a tier list. For those of you who don't know me, I am Snatty. I'm a solo laner. I've played in the SML or SEC since Season 9. I played in Season 9 for the Yomi Tanuki and the NA side of things, of course, and then the Athenian Sages in Season 10. I've played competitive Smite to some variation for a number of years, Console League in Season 6 for PS4 as well, way back when's, and a lot of people have been asking me for a tier list, not just for solo lane, but just for the game as a whole. So I'm going to try to be pretty brief with this, just because I understand that this can take a very long time. But I'm really excited to get into it. I'm using Smite Source, which I think is Weekend's website for tier lists. I was looking for a good tier list format thing, and Weekend I guess, owns this site. I'm not really too sure, but it's a really good site, so I recommend it. He has his own tier list here, obviously, plenty of like god builds from him and other people, and just like a really cool, good site. So yeah, I've got a bunch of tiers here. I'm gonna really quickly run down kind of what I interpret these tiers as. So SS to me is just like broken. It's so unbelievably good that these characters should be perma banned or picked in every single game. And I'm looking at this through a competitive lens, of course, but this obviously also factors into ranked. S tier is like your top of the line meta picks should be drafted every game ideally. A plus is above the point of balance, strong but not quite, S tier. A is your point of balance. These are average characters. B plus is situationally good. A little bit below the point of balance. B tier is situational but generally not great, and C is just unviable. That's how I tend to look at it. I know that there's some, places where it kind of gets spliced a little bit, and I'll try to keep things in order. But yeah, I have A plus and A to kind of distinguish, and B plus as well, because there are a lot of characters I think are relatively close in terms of value, and depending on the way you splice them, they may be a little bit different. So again, this is my interpretation, this is my opinion. But I do think I have a good amount of credibility. So we'll start with Achilles. Achilles, I think, is going to be a very comfortable A plus. He is definitely above the point of average, and he's a strong solo laner. But if I were to list the solos in order, I wouldn't put him in the top five. Stunner X makes him really viable. You can go cloak on him, stack really easily. He's definitely a strong pick, but a weak level 1 clear makes his early laning phase at times questionable, and he just doesn't provide as much value as some of these top solo laners, but still is very good. Agni just got a nerf in this bonus balance, and I'm a little bit surprised as to why. I think the character is good, but about in the A plus range as well. He has strong secure, good damage, but he isn't the best mage in the world. He doesn't have the best secure in the world. He doesn't have CC immunity. That's a big problem. No leap, huge problem to some junglers as well. Good character, has CC, definitely strong, but not higher than A plus. You could make an argument for S, but I'm going to put him A plus above Achilles. Amuzen Cobb, this character was fantastic in the mid lane, and after some nerfs and whatnot, he really kind of took a huge step back. This was Bluestone nerfs, this was Transcendence nerfs, and I think because of all of those, along with Jotun's nerfs, he's probably going to be an A tier. He's probably one of those characters that's still good, but he was so unbelievably overpowered, was definitely in that S tier borderlining on SS, and the nerfs have kind of made him back to average. He's being played to the extent of like a B tier character, but he is good. Just I think really pulled back from all the nerfs he's faced. Opwatch right now really has no space in the meta. We're gonna put him right away in B tier. The only reason I'm not putting him in C is because I guess he has a little bit of value into some healing comps, and some healers are strong right now. But realistically, you can play him in one role, and that's in mid, and even then, not the most viable. Has okay matchups, but really not too great. Amaterasu, really high team fight, pick. Has an underrated laning phase, but one that's still pretty difficult. That being said, I think Frostbound's fantastic in the game right now, especially with Blackthorn getting a slight nerf. Ama is again one of those characters that was really, really good, saw some itemization changes, and has kind of weak pressure. So I think she's played less, but I'm very high on Ama. Obviously, one of my best characters. Really enjoy her, and I still think she's an S tier. On the lower end of S tier for sure, but I still think she's an S tier solo laner. And I'd probably put her number 5 in my list right now, maybe number 6, but a little bit of above Achilles in my opinion. On her is a super staple hunter. He's always kind of okay at the very least, and his flexibility in drafting is very valuable. That being said, on her did take some nerfs, mainly to his pillar. I believe his ultimate got hit a little bit as well. He's still strong, but he's going to be In S tier on the back end, definitely not what he used to be, but still a good pick. Hunters are kind of a weird role because they all kind of achieve similar things and they tend to sort of fit around the same place. Anubis is just quite frankly not very viable right now. I'm going to put him in B tier above Hopwatch. We saw some lifesteal buffs, so he has a chance to be okay, but realistically, he functions as like a cheese pressure mid laner, and that's really all he has to him. Alquan, quite frankly, right now is just not very good. He's still better than these two picks. I'll put him in B plus. I think he's situational and can be strong. Magical damage is really valuable in the jungle at times if you're running a hunter mid, but that's a little bit out of flavor right now. Even then, you can still run some assassins like Tsukiyomi, and then slotting in some magical damage can be really effective. Hard for solo laners and tanks to just optimize and itemize into in general. So he has some niche, but again, isn't great. Aphrodite, we're going to put her in S tier above these two picks. Aphro is fantastic. She's an amazing support, high CC, not really high CC, but high like safety from CC, and pretty good CC of slow and knockback. The immunity is obviously a big deal. Super safe support can really kind of shelter and help turtle a lane, and you're really kind of invulnerable a lot of the time. Super strong character. Won't see the value in ranked as much, but in competitive characters, OP. Apollo is better than he used to be, but probably still not great. I'm gonna put him in A tier. I think he's pretty average, honestly. He's like very mid, but not bad. He's not like situational or something. I guess mid is kind of a bad term, but he's very average. I think he can do a lot of things okay. Split push potential is nice, stuff like that. Protections from his mesmerize are really cool, but ultimately doesn't do too much great. But also I think is a pretty fine pick right now. Arachne, I'm gonna put her in A tier. She is an auto attacker, so as a result, she has a good amount of value no matter what. Kin size is really great on her. You could still probably go Equinox. Frostbound is honestly fun on her if you really wanted to. But Executioner is great. And you're able to just box and trade with people very well on this character. She's a great 1v1 character. But the lack of range, a kind of subpar ultimate, means that ultimately she can fall off. But she isn't one of those characters that, used to be super cheesy, ranked viable. I think now she's actually just a good pick at times, but generally pretty average. Doesn't stack up with the best junglers. We're going to also one thing to mention with her is that she's good for Bull Demon Kings and stuff, which is relevant, but there's better junglers who are also good at that, which we'll talk about later. We're going to go into Ares here. Ares really kind of exists solely as a counter pick, and for a lot of that mindset, you think of him as like a B plus character, kind of like Ao Kuang. But in terms of the value and how often you can almost accidentally get Ares value, on top of the fact that he's a pressure guardian, which means when you pick him, you're generally winning dual lane. I'm going to have to put him in A plus above Achilles. This character is very, very strong. He is somewhat situational in the sense of, I guess, his late game as a guardian isn't as good as some other picks, but being able to buff his backliners with the HP 5 and attack a damage buff with his second ability, um, just being fairly tanky, having great damage, fantastic ultimate, obviously with mitigations in it, and more importantly, again, high pressure in the early game, along with being good into almost every tank in the game, is a really, really big benefit. And it makes Ares, even though he's a quote unquote counter pick, extremely strong if you can slot him in that third or fourth pick. Artemis is weird. She functions a lot like Ares in the sense that she's a counter pick, but she doesn't bring the pressure, and her build paths are a little bit weird. There's a lot of Bluestone Transcendence builds that are nice with Artemis, but I know those aren't really meta. You could stack crit on her, but just a little bit risky. I'm going to put her in B plus tier. I think she's okay, but ultimately you just have to cater a bit too much of a comp around her, and I think ultimately that makes her kind of poor. Artio, pretty similar to Artemis. I just don't think there's a lot going for her. She exists as a counter pick, can be good into like Arthur, can be good into Hercules and stuff, but I think Ares tends to do what she does better, and is also just a lot less safe of a character. So there's really no point of playing Artio if Ares is up. Athena's very good. She's gotten some nerfs in the time, but she's still a premier support pick. Great engage, easy engage, fantastic ultimate. Is the offensive version of Aphrodite, and I think generally speaking is a little bit better than her. Maybe in a pure vacuum, high-end competitive set, you would see a little bit more Afro prioritization, but again, this is very close, and Athena's super strong. You can play her from bronze to grandmasters and have high efficacy all the way through. Fantastic pick, great engage, super simple, really hard to mess up. You don't even need blank on her. You could go like horrific and sprint, anything like that. Being able to engage and not needing blink, and again, you can go and it helps, but being able to engage and not needing blink is a huge tool, and it's so valuable for support. It really kind of simplifies your game as a team and gives you a very clear win condition. Atlas is a bit weird. He primarily functions as a shredding objective guardian, which is like a novelty to the character. He has pretty good fight in lane, and I think he's honestly quite underrated. I'm gonna put him at the higher end of A plus tier. I think he's a little bit better than Ares. Obviously, he's not good into Ares. This is a bad matchup for Atlas, but I think the value that Atlas can bring with burning objectives with a mage who secures or a mage who burns like a Merlin or something is extremely valuable and honestly underutilized. Awilix is a very high pressure kind of stompy pick. You really are kind of somewhat reliant on knockups, but even then her damage is pretty strong. No CC immunity definitely hurts her. You're looking at top junglers right now of Camazotz, Lancelot, Daji. I don't think she does particularly well into any of them, maybe Camazotz to some extent. But generally speaking right now, I think Awilix kind of struggles because of some of the top junglers are generally pretty good into her, or Shen as well. And so she's strong, but probably could be stronger. One thing that you're going to know, and obviously we have plenty more characters to go into, but there aren't, knockups are prevalent in the game, but I don't think like the quintessential picks for the most part really have knockups. There's a couple of them, but this isn't really a Hercules meta. This is a Sobek meta. We'll get to that, but this isn't a Hercules meta. Hebo is not being played. Arthur is good, but not being played much. A lot of these characters that you would consistently think of as like knock-up support, setup characters for solo support, mid, whatever it might be, are really not played too much, and I think that hurts her. I think she's still good. I'm going to put her in A plus at the back end, but she probably could be better if some of the high-end meta junglers weren't as strong as they are. Baba Yaga has seen a huge fall off in play, and I'm really not too sure why. I still think she's pretty good. I'm gonna put her in A plus just because I don't see her enough, but I do think she's still really strong. You can go Cloak Hunter, you can go Timeline as well, be extremely tanky. You go Book of Thoth, Warlocks even together. You could just go one really, really strong. You're able to, be defense and damage. You don't have secure, which is one poor thing, but your team fight and poke is very, very valuable and ultimately deserves a spot in the A plus tier. Bacchus is a really good like Joust character and stuff, but Conquest it just typically doesn't translate. His early game defense and stuff is super strong, so he's not terrible, but honestly this character just doesn't really fit in the support role at a higher level. He kind of falls off. I'll put him in B plus. Bacchusur is weird. Bacchusur is kind of like Arachne, but I think honestly just a worse version. I'm gonna put him at the top end of B plus. He has, the mannequins, auto attack speed builds like Arachne, but his 1v1's a little bit dicier typically against junglers, and he's a little bit less dynamic. I think. I think his early game clear is better, but his early game fight is significantly worse. And you'll do okay on him. I don't think the character's bad, but he is situational. I think a little bit more so than Arachne. He has really no CC to his kit and tends to struggle into a lot of these junglers. Lancelot and stuff just absolutely can eviscerate him, or at the very least be safe from him. And if Baka can't win those 1v1s, he doesn't do anything really. Baki Kujira is weird. There's a sigil build that I think is pretty effective on him. Outside of that, I think the character's terrible. Even then, sigil is kind of slow to go. It's kind of weak. I don't think it's a Guardian solo meta at all. I think he's okay, but not quite average. I'm going to put him in B plus tier. I'm actually going to move Bakasura behind Aokwang, by the way, and we're going to put Baki Kujira behind Bacchus and Artemis. I'll put Baki Kujira here, excuse me. I think he's all right, but really not too great. Definitely has like one or two build paths that are fine, but typically, again, this is not really a magical solo meta. There's a couple of picks, but not too much. Baron Samedi is exclusively a support pick and a very good one at that. He is just somewhat situational, but something that Baron has for him is when it comes to some of the top supports in the game, he can destroy a lot of them. He's fantastic into characters like Eset support, Aphrodite support, can be really good as a counter engage support for things like Horus, even though obviously it's a double-edged sword, can get picked pretty easily. He's really great into some of these junglers who are diving constantly. Has a lot of safety, a lot of self peel, really powerful. I think extremely underrated. But his pressure is a bit awkward. I'd probably put him in A plus at the back, and I do think he is strong. Bastet got a lot of buffs recently with like the cat stuff. I think ultimately though she's kind of coming back down to earth, and she's a somewhat limited jungler. Her ultimate is still pretty weak. I'll put her in the A tier at the higher end. Bologna is a pressure pick still, very strong. Her passive got a bit of a nerf, her ultimate got a nerf a little bit beforehand, her Scourge got a bit of a nerf, but when it comes to pressure in the solo lane, she still excels and is absolutely an S tier solo laner. Cabrakan is another one of those weird counter pick supports. I think he's got a little bit more value than like a Bacchus and stuff, but ultimately I'd still probably put him in B plus tier. He's just no CC no CC immunity in his ult. That is a big issue typically. I think Atlas is one of the few supports that can actually get away with that. And his pressure is good, but he's just such a risky character. Again, when you have stuff like Daji that are so prevalent, he can do really well into a lot of these kind of immobile mages, can do good into like an Afro support, but generally speaking, it's just you're incurring so much risk for a pick that you generally can just have safer and better engage on with something like Athena and ultimately do better more often than not. Again, B plus means still playable, but it just you have to cater a little bit more than you would the normal, and ultimately don't think he's too great. Camazotz is insane. This is an easy S tier. Um, just super easy engage. No CC really, but high damage. Ultimate's incredibly broken. Blackthorn has elevated this god even higher. I think you're borderlining SS. I'm going to put him at the top of S tier. Don't think he's quite there yet, but he's extremely, extremely strong. Cannot go wrong with Gamma. Cerberus is not good. Cerberus is really poop. He doesn't do anything in solo, doesn't really do anything in support. He's like this anti-heal character, but the anti-heal isn't even effective. I'm going to put him at the top of B tier. Kurnos is fun in Smite 2. Smite 1, not fun at all. Kurnos is a B tier hunter. Doesn't really have pressure, and as a hunter in ADC, you need pressure. And if you don't have pressure, you better have a very, very good reason to not have it. Like Artemis at least has, and Kurnos just doesn't have that. Doesn't have CC immunity, doesn't have the amount of consistent CC. Just really doesn't function as too strong of a character. Chalk is very good. I'm very high on the Chalk train. I'm going to put him in S tier above Amaterasu. I think he is a top 5 solo laner. Still, it's close, but I do think he is there. I think Chalk's really good. I also think Chalk can probably function in the jungle decently, and flexibility I do value because when characters can be played in multiple roles, that does open up some things. But just anti-auto attack is super strong on this character. Wins a lot of lanes. Really can't go bad. I'm actually gonna put him above Bologna because I think overall he's a little bit more versatile. Um, Chang'e is exclusively a mid laner and not a good one at that. I'm going to put her in the back end of B plus tier. I think with Blink you have some viability. Obviously immunity isn't bad and a heal is nice. That can kind of break up some things and you have a clear win condition, but it's still pretty cheesy. I'm not even sure if B plus is a great spot for her. I don't know. She's such an awkward character. I just don't think she's very good right now. Um, I'll put her in the top end of B plus because I guess she can have some value as like an engager, and it is like a different flair for mid that I don't think is inherently bad. But no, I'll put her in B. I think she's at the top of B. Again, the flare isn't bad. I don't even think her 3 has anti-heal anymore. She's just like a bit weird, and you can make her work. Again, B you can make work, but there's really not a huge reason to ever play her. Kieran got nerfed a lot. He was a really good support. Even then, I think he was kind of on the overrated side. I'm going to put him in A tier. I think his cooldowns are just kind of long now, and he exists fairly well as a counter picking support. The silences and stuff are strong, but ultimately just falls a little bit flat. Charybdis is broken. The buffs to her that she got recently has elevated this character to literally being one of the best gods in the game. It's ridiculous. She was probably in B tier before this, maybe even C tier. She was awful, but this character is so unbelievably safe, so difficult to dive. A top end player picks this character, and you just typically can't lose. This really should be banned more, and I genuinely think it's one of the best gods in the game. Kernabug is a global hunter. Those are like inherently any character with the global tends to be pretty strong. He's definitely better than like an Apollo or something. He is pretty underplayed right now, I think. I'm gonna put him in the A plus tier, kind of towards the higher end. I think he really is hurt by the lack of people who actually like the character and play him well. But he is still a strong character, and I think competitively is viable. Chiron is a hunter mid, and hunter mids are really, for the most part, have kind of fallen off. Transcendence getting nerfed hurt him a lot. I'm going to put him at the back end of A tier. He's still serviceable, but not what he used to be. Kronos saw some buffs to like the rings and stuff, so inadvertently saw some buffs to his own kit and whatnot. But ultimately, Book of Thoth not being the best thing in the world. Doomorb is good, but it really isn't Kronos' time. He just doesn't really have a place in the meta. I think he's okay, because he still functions fairly decently. And I'm gonna put him actually like behind Bakasura. He's not the worst character in the world, has some good matchups and fights, but just falls a little bit flat as well. Cleo is awful right now. She really just does nothing. Her 1v1s in the jungle are never good. She's unviable in solo. I'm gonna put her like right behind Anubis. She really sucks, and it makes me very sad because I think she's super fun. Cthulhu is really good. This character is stupidly easy. I definitely missed the boat on putting this on my top 5 solos video, and I realize I might be saying top 5 for like too many characters, but this character is very good. I honestly, as I think about it, Ama's probably not my top 5, but she's still like an S tier character. I'm gonna put Cthulhu actually above all of these. In terms of pure value, he is just easier than all of these picks, which is pretty ridiculous. And his late game team fight is incredible. Doesn't really have the best lanes in comparison to Chalk, but he really can't get out pressured. You max the two, and you just kind of can stack up your abilities easy. His clear speed is, his clear speed is a little bit slow, but you can go like Conduit and Mystical Mail if you really wanted to, and Curse Weaver's broken, so really helps him. Cullen, I think, is really like the most overrated solo laner in the game. I do not think this character is great. I'm going to put him at the top end of A tier. I think he's very average and mid. He's a lane bully who is not a better laner than Chalk, Bellona, or Cthulhu. It just doesn't really make sense. I don't know what the big appeal is with this character. I think he's fun. I think he got buffed, but you have to understand that before he got buffed, this character was horrible, and the buffs put him into okay relevance, but ultimately he's still just not a great pick. There are so many better solos to go for that don't have that risk in that area of, hey, I don't really do anything because I don't have enough rage, I don't have my ultimate, or, I just finished my ultimate and now what do I do? Again, you get a good engage on stuff like that is good. Dawnbringer builds can work, they can be effective, but Blackthorn just got a little bit of a nerf, and even then, what starter do you go? I guess you go Redstone. Your clear is fine, but he's really just not the best pick. And I know that might be a bit unpopular, but I'm really not high on Cullen. Cupid is going straight to B tier. I think that's pretty obvious. This actually might be a C tier. This god is horrible. Yeah, I'm gonna put him in C tier. I think Cupid might be like one of the worst gods in the game. I mean, he just does nothing right now. Daji is incredibly OP. We're gonna put her in S tier. This character you won't see a lot in ranked, but from a competitive standpoint, this is probably a better character than Camazotz. Honestly, I'm gonna put her above Kama. Um, she is so unbelievably strong with the CC she brings in most competitive games. At the end of season 10 and going into the season, she would be and still is, if there was a competitive thing, a permanent ban. Character is just kind of like emoji. You really can't balance it in a competitive side of things um, very easily. And as a result, she's just super strong. Dan Zaburo is awful. There's not really too much to be said. He's got mitigations in like his third ability. That's kind of the only thing that saves him. His Rocket Ultimate is awful. At least it's CC immune. I'm going to put him above Cupid for that. But yeah, really not a great pick. Discordia is weird. I don't think she fits the meta right now at all. I like that she gives power to her teammates, or to one of her teammates, but I don't think the mid pressure, the CC is valuable, but she doesn't have secure. Again, you can play for like a chippy kind of play style, but a lot of mages will just kind of outrange you. And ultimately, if you don't have a lot of pressure on the map and stuff, she's pretty ineffective. I think she's a little better than Sir, but probably would put her around there. I don't think Disco's very good right now. Erlang Shen is fantastic. Do I want to put him in S tier is the question. And this is a jungle pick, obviously, not in solo. I don't think his solo lane is super strong, but Erlang Shen is high CC, really strong in terms of pressure and fighting, is a great mannequins character. So yeah, I will put him in S tier. I'm going to put him above Chalk, below Aphrodite. I think his value in being able to do Bull Demon Kings and just rotations. I know he doesn't have a CC Munol, but you can build him tanky as a jungler with like Berserkers and Frostbound and ultimately be really strong. And his fights in the jungle and 1v1s are pretty strong, but he also is just such a good team fighter and provides that CC backdrop that a lot of junglers just aren't able to do while still maintaining a fantastic 1v1. Iset has seen more play. I don't think she's great. I'm gonna put her in the top end of B plus behind Aokwang. She's just kind of whatever. Secure on her is nice. If you do play her in mid and if you play her in support, you obviously don't have the secure. The CC isn't bad, but she's just such a risky pick. I think if you go timeline and stuff, you can make it work, but there's really just no reason to play her. Fafnir has gotten a lot of buffs. I think he is quite strong. I'm going to put him at the higher end of A plus, right above Atlas. You know, the buffs really do help him. If you slap a Gem of ISO on him, can be really, really powerful. Fenrir is pretty awful, honestly, which is shocking to say because Blackthorn stuff is good, but this character is bad. You know, Beads is like so often up right now in Smite 2. He's such a different character. His 1v1s are okay, but he kind of just can have a lot of games in the higher level where he's just invisible. And as a result, I think Fenrir is actually whoopsies, I did not mean to do that. I think Fenrir is actually like right towards the end of, oh, my thing is bugging out. Right towards the end of B plus tier. Like he's really not good. I don't know what Fenrir does right now in Smite, and it's a shame. You know, he's kind of like Cleo, just forgotten at the moment. Excuse me, Freya has gotten some buffs, still isn't the best pick in the world, but the ring buffs have helped her a good bit. I'm gonna put her in A tier as kind of a sleeper. I think she's better than the play she's getting, which is next to none. And she's one of those picks that just needs a little bit more time and maturation, I think, to see her being played, but she's good. Ganesha is a low pressure support, so that does hurt him. But in terms of shutdown on like the team and stuff, he just provides so much of it. I have to put him at the top of A plus. Really good, very easy. Again, the low pressure hurts him a lot, but besides that, the character is great. Geb is in a very similar situation. I'm going to put him in A plus as well, just on the back end of it. The CC and the laning phase, you know, the laning phase hurts him, but after that, the character is incredible. Um, so if you can get through it, if you're into a low pressure support or just not like a extremely high pressure dual lane, if you get away with it, Geb is going to service you better than almost every support, and he's good into Athena. Gilgamesh kind of just doesn't have a home right now. He's a better jungler than he is a solo, but even then, there's so many knockback immune characters in the game and slow immune characters in the game that he really just doesn't have much going for him. I'm going to put him at the back end of A tier because I think he can work, but he really just doesn't fit much. Guan Yu got some buffs, still is bad. Don't recommend Guan Yu. I'm sure you've seen me play into this character on stream and stuff. It just has no range. If you go Bluestone, you're screwed. If you go Sigil, you're screwed. I mean, it's so easy to exploit this character. Doesn't really have good matchups. No range again means you can get frozen on, get super far behind. And if you're playing a warrior in the soul lane, that's instantly a losing con into anybody who's a high end player. That's just not a good smite. That's just not a good draft pick. I'm gonna put him in B plus. I'm really tempted to put him in B, but I'll put him at the bottom of B plus. Actually, it's my tier list. Do I want to put Guan in B? I don't know. I've been very high on this character when he's good, but I really think he sucks. I'm going to put him at the top of B. You know, Sigil builds can maybe put him up to B+, plus, but he's still just not great. Hachiman is really good, but he's fallen off a bit. I think even then he still deserves to be an S tier. Competitively, this is like your quintessential safe pressure hunter. I know he saw some nerfs to his first ability, and I believe his ultimate, but still functions as like a very good, I don't know what to pick here. We're top twoing. We need a hunter. Hachi is always still safe and a good selection in that regard. Hades really doesn't fit the game right now in Smite 1. He's typically a solo laner, and Hades solo just isn't very good. I'm going to put him at the top of B tier, right ahead of Guan Yu. He doesn't have great lanes. His pressure doesn't really work. You could go like a Book of Thoth tainted build, but just really isn't too strong right now. Hebo sucks. Thank God. I hate this character. You know, I think as a magical jungler, he can be okay, but ultimately just doesn't really do anything, and we are going to put him in the B tier as well. This character is stinky, does absolutely nothing right now, and I could not be happier for it. Heimdall is really good. I actually think Heim might be the best ADC in the game right now. His well, excuse me, Charybdis right here. My mistake. And there's another one that's really good. But Heim is quite strong. I actually do like him above some of these warrior picks. I'm gonna put him right here. I think you will see less play of him, just because he is kind of a difficult character. But in terms of the value he brings, he's just super strong. I'm actually gonna move on her down to the top of A plus. I think maybe my S is getting a little too crowded, but Heim's just vision, pressure, safety is incredible. Knockup immunities is super valuable. Great ultimate. You spaced correctly with this character, you're nearly unkillable. Just super strong pick for sure. Hell is not good. You can definitely cheese out some wins in ranked with her, but I think that's the most you're going to get out of her. She is a B plus character. I'm leaning towards B tier. I'm gonna actually put her in B tier, I think. I think if you put her, I'm gonna put her at the top of B tier. I think if you put her in support, she can work, but still kind of low pressure for the most part. No frontline presence. I don't really think non-frontline supports can work right now, except for like Baron and Aphrodite, because they provide so much CC. Hell really doesn't do that, and as a result, kind of stinks. Hera, talking about stinky, we're gonna throw Hera in B plus. She's a little bit better than some of these other picks just because her shield and stuff is strong. You can use Argus to self-peel yourself to some degree, and I think she does sneaky good damage, but I mean, ultimately, she's just pretty poor. Would I even put her in B plus? I mean, I think her CC is more consistent than Discordia's, so I don't think she's quite a B tier. But yeah, she's probably back in a B plus. I'll put her behind Fenrir. I really don't think she's great. Hercules is obviously a solo lane pick only, and doesn't really win too many favors in the role right now. I think Sigil and stuff makes him okay. I'm going to put him at the bottom end of where did Hercules go? Now that is an issue. I was going to say I'm going to put him at the bottom of A tier, but he just disappeared. Oh, he's right there. Okay. We're going to put him at the bottom of A tier. He's okay, but kind of just struggles right now with how much anti-heal is prevalent in the game and isn't one of the top picks. Blackthorn's okay. You kind of run into an issue where no starter feels that great on him. The moving ultimate is good. I'll put him above Gilga and Freya. I think. Actually, I'm going to move these two back. I want to move these two back, these three back. I don't think these three are that good. Excuse me, not this one. AMC. I'll put Herc above those, but yeah, he's kind of just in a bit of an awkward spot. Horus is, I think, quite good, honestly, in solo and support. Definitely a better support than solo, but high pressure physical support means you can get some more magical damage on the map potentially in the solo lane, like with a Cthulhu or another pick that we'll be getting to. I think he's actually quite good. High pressure, kind of does what Atlas does. Maybe a little bit worse, but his burst potential is great. Can get counter picks, so you have to pick him a little bit carefully, but you can absolutely stomp lanes on the character and is definitely really strong. Hou Yi has no purpose in Smite right now. He just doesn't do anything very well. His pressure's not great. His clear's okay. He is a B plus tier hunter at best. I'm gonna actually put him in B tier. He's just not very good right now in the game. You rarely see him. I don't know the last time I've seen a Hou Yi in Conquest, honestly. Hunbats is always going to be viable because he's a teamfight jungler, and I think just for that regard alone, he's going to be put in A+. He doesn't have the best early game, but Knockup Immune 2, fantastic ultimate. Again, Fear No Evil, especially with how strong it is on the damage standpoint since some recent buffs, is always at least okay. Ishtar is a pressure hunter, and I think because she's a pressure hunter, she's going to go into S tier. Um, a little bit riskier than Hachiman, but you could argue she's better than Hachiman post nerfs just because of the amount of pressure she brings. You really kind of automatically win a lot of dual lanes with her. I'm going to put her a bit below just because I think she's obviously riskier, but this character played at a high level. You have her with a semi-peeling support. She can really help get something like Geb off the ground running, and then all of a sudden you have a great character that can kind of peel her out. And again, her from a pressure standpoint is better than Hachi, I would say right now, but just a bit riskier. So ultimately not as good in my opinion, but it's very close and you can make the argument. Eshell is she's better. I'm gonna put her in A plus. She's definitely better than she used to be. I think she's still just a bit weird because generally you want your mages to be doing like a lot of ranged poke, and she doesn't have as much range as like the Agnes of the world and stuff. But she still functions really powerfully as just like a healer. And her ultimate, obviously healing her now and stuff is good. I think in a full commit team comp she can be quite strong. You can even play this character in solo a little bit as a flex. I don't think it's that viable, but it's not bad. Her damage is really underrated. She bursts people to all hell in mid and solo, excuse me. So I think she's actually a little bit undervalued right now. I do think she is strong, even though she doesn't really fit the traditional mage mid archetype. Izanami's a pressure hunter pick, but she's really like the bottom of the barrel for a pressure hunter. I think you can play her and be effective, but I'm gonna put her in B plus. There's no point of playing Izanami when you can play Ishtar and stuff. They're just safer, and their pressure is about the same, but again, they're just much safer, and their contest on camps is usually pretty much better because they have more CC. Um, Giannis is weird. I don't really ever know how to rank Giannis because I think it's mostly a skill thing. He's not a traditional mage, but I don't want to dock him just for that explicitly. He's got good penetration now with his passive slash ultimate scaling up and giving him penetration. I think he's actually quite good. I'm going to put him an A plus above Kernabog behind Achilles. I'm also going to put Hunbets up a little bit, actually like up here. But yeah, I think Giannis is pretty good. It's just very difficult and wouldn't really recommend playing him. Jing Wei, because crit is so effective right now, I think is strong. Now, obviously, as a frontliner, you can just build Spectral, but it doesn't do the absolute most for you. A lot of the junglers right now are scaled towards a full damage type of build. She can be really valuable into that. Her pressure is weak, but her value as being good into knockups and stuff too, I think is extremely strong. And I'm gonna put her at the top of A tier with potential to go up to A plus. Jormungandr is very good. You don't have to go Mannequin's build, you can go a Death Soul build and stuff, but his pressure in the laning phase is really obnoxious, being a magical soul laner that's actually good. Magical soul laners open up the game a lot, it's just the problem is most of them suck. Yorm is not one of them. Cthulhu is very good, I think Yorm's very good. I'm going to put Yorm right behind Chalk, really good into Bolona, really good into Amma, really good into some of the other picks, and yeah, really, really solid. Kali is horrible. 9.5 gutted this character for a little bit of time, and then she came back a bit in season 10. I unfortunately had the displeasure of playing against Johnny on this character. Didn't go so hot for us, I won't lie, but yeah, I think Kali has a weird relation kind of with Smite right now. She's just a little bit too late game for what she provides, which is like normally an okay thing, but you need to be active on the map. Blackthorn is still really good. Frostbound is very prevalent on a lot of soul laners. It kind of just hurts Kali. I don't think she's terrible, terrible, but she's kind of been gutted by a lot of the changes. I'll put her at the top end of B plus, behind Alkwang, I think. Khepri is really good. I think he's just like a pretty solid A plus tier. I'm gonna put him like above Horus. He's a little bit underplayed, but a res ultimate is just always going to be valuable and always going to have a place in the meta. I'd actually probably like him a little bit more than Ganesh. I might move Ganesh a little bit down just because I think his pressure being so weak does hurt him. So I'll put Ganesh right there. I think, let me, do I like this? I don't know. These are like so interchangeable. I think this is really close, but I think Khepri's a tiny bit better than all of them. King Arthur is, I think, actually quite strong, but there's no doubt that he gets shut down by a lot of picks, so I can't put him above Achilles. I'll put him right in A plus. Do think he's very good though. Kukulkan has gotten hit by a lot of nerfs, and I think that's really kind of gutted the character. Still is great secure, so isn't terrible, but I'll put him at the top end of A. You can play him still, but Book of Thoth being hit a couple of times has definitely given him some weakness here. I have to take a drink, man. We are yapping, dear God. Kumba. Kumba sucks. It really makes me sad. This is one of my favorite characters in the game, but this god is horrible. We're gonna just move Kumba to C tier, unfortunately. He's really not good. He's gonna go right behind Cupid. He might be the worst god in the game. Diminishing return and stuff just like destroys these hard CC characters a lot of the time, and Kumba is the greatest example of that. On to our next one, Kuzenbo. Kuzenbo is a ranked support, very cheesy. I think competitively does fall off a decent bit, but the level to be able to get a good amount of impact with very little skill or execution, I think does benefit the character and ultimately makes it worthy of consideration. We'll put him in A plus for that reason. You could argue he could be a little bit lower, but I'm gonna put him like right here. He's quite strong. I'll put Ares above him. He's quite strong just because he's so easy and like his function in a team fight can be really good. That being said, you manage to get some healing on your backline, some auras on your backline, stuff like that. He will somewhat, to some degree, fall in relevancy because he is pretty single target most of the time. Lancelot is SS tier. This character is absurd. The horse is just broken. I know we got a slight nerf this patch. I don't think it matters at all. Not being able to be pulled or anything by like dodge ult, Ares ult is just ridiculous. He can get stunned off the horse, but that's really the only thing that takes him off. So unless you're picking a choice few characters that have stuns that can consistently hit him, this character is an absolute nightmare. I mean, typically you pick things like Agni and maybe I'm just looking at these top picks like Agni. Pick things like Agni and Agni. You know, you could do Gebel, I guess, but it's just so difficult. Achilles stun, you know, really so difficult to play in this character. He's right here. I don't know if I want to put him above Charybdis. I think I will, just because I think he's a little bit more, well, not a little bit, he's definitely more popular. But yeah, the character is absurd. Super, super strong. Loki doesn't really have a huge spot in the meta. He's a 1v1 character in the jungle. I think he's a slice above like the Bakasuras of the world, but he's pretty average. Bluestone was like kind of his cash cow, and Bluestone's a bit nerfed, and you can't really go with that in the jungle super consistently. I think he's okay, but ultimately not great. Mom and Brigitte is super strong, but quite difficult. Her pressure does hurt her because it's pretty weak, but you get some defense items online. Have a lot of life steal. Her healing is insane. Just did a YouTube video on her in solo. Definitely not a good solo laner, but a great jungler. I'll put her in S tier or A plus. This is tough for me. I think I like her in S tier. It just you don't see enough people playing her because at the very highest level, I think she is difficult, but she's also so hard to play into. You know, being able to dash into someone and do damage to them, they can't hurt you back, is a big, big difficulty. Her early game isn't the best thing in the world, but I think you could argue that like Daji doesn't have the best early game in the world, and just the value she can bring negates that. I don't think Mammon has quite that value, but she's still very strong. Marticarus is kind of like the Chirons and stuff of the world. He just kind of has been killed by Transcendence and Bluestone nerfs and stuff, and I guess I'll put him at the top of B plus tier. I really don't think he's got a spot in the meta right now. Maui got buffed a couple of times, and he went from being okay to pretty good. I'm gonna put him in A plus tier, right kind of behind these supports. I think he's good, but ultimately his main source of like CC and his ult being a knockup is a little bit unfortunate because knockup immunities are super prevalent, but he can be quite good into these dash characters. A lot of these movement soul laners, I definitely know can be quite good for Maui, and you know his pressure in the lane is pretty good. Kind of functions somewhat similar to an Atlas and like a Horus, but I would argue that they might be a tiny bit better just because of the burn capacity they can bring to objectives. More so Atlas and Fafnir, but you get the idea. Medusa's really strong right now. She's just kind of held back by again it being like a bluestone meta, but in terms of or not being a bluestone meta really, but in terms of like hunter mids, I think she's probably the best one. Unfortunately, hunter mids are just not very good right now. That being said, I think she's still, if there is a bit of a shift towards the ability based characters with transcendence getting a buff and stuff, and you don't need transcendence, but if you see those items getting buffed again or you know their nerfs reverted, I think Medusa will probably sneak up to S tier. She is very strong right now. Pressure is amazing, and pressure is a big part of just being a good character in Smite generally. Mercury is okay. The problem with Merc is you're always going to go Spectral into him before the game even loads in, you know that. So because his build path is so like easily accounted for, that doesn't mean it's counterable. Spectral Merc, like Merc can still go through Spectral pretty okay. But just the idea that like from a build perspective, you already have a plan for him before he even loads in, and there's no flexibility where, you know, hunters, they don't have to go crit. And Serket, for example, can build a kind of defensive build, and the crit's just like a little after effect bonus. I think that predictability of Mercury really does hurt him not being able to go like a kin-size shred build that just full pen. And ultimately, I'm going to put him in the top end of B plus for that, right behind Ao Kwang. Merlin is always going to be good. He's just a shred burst mage, not burst, just a shred burn mage. So that's always valuable. No CC immunity, but so much safety and range on the character. 3 stances, a lot of burn, no great secure, but again, that burn is super effective for objectives. You saw Dardes run this with PBM to effectively win worlds, and he hasn't really been changed since as a character. With the Atlas Merlin combo, you know, it's one of those classic like super burn shred comps, and is ultimately still very valuable. Now this one is weird. Morgan Le Fay, I think, is an A plus tier mage as well. Would I say that actually? No, you know what? Yeah, I would. I think I would. Morgan Le Fay is quite strong. I think she's better than these picks. Yeah, she's got a lot of self peel, which is really valuable. And you know, she doesn't have the best secure in the world, but she's just like a fight mage who's able to stay alive, and that's very, very valuable. considering again how many junglers are really problematic in terms of their dive. I think Lefay can deal with them better than most mages, and she's pretty self-sustainable in that regard. So if you go a dive comp, you can have a Lefay slot in very easily and be extremely effective. Mulan is extremely overrated. She's a great pressure pick, but is super, super risky. I'm going to put her at the top end of A tier. I think her value can be really strong and higher than Kukulkan's, but her risk is extremely high. I think the grapple is very valuable, but in terms of like how risky she is, she can just be a big struggle and trouble. And Achilles has clearer win cons. I think Arthur has generally better safety and stuff, so I'd put her at the top of A. Naja is a great CCing jungler, a little bit underplayed right now. Blackthorn though is so good on him. Runeforged is good on him. Regrowth is good. Serrated is good. I don't want to put Naja on S because I feel like my S tier is getting a little bit clouded, but I mean this character is really strong. I think he can also flex into support okayly and to solo okayly, so that flexibility is just really valuable. Put him, excuse me, above her along. Neath is the only hunter mid that I think is really still viable. I know I mentioned Medusa, but I think Neath is actually very good still just because of the ultimate value. I'm gonna put her at the top of A plus. She still is fine. That's probably the only hunter mid I would recommend at this point, along with maybe Medusa. Nemesis is a bit weird. The shield is definitely much better now, but no CC immunity. Her main CC being slow reliant into a game that has, sprints and stuff like that. Pretty easy to buy, especially since Horrific is like the go-to relic for a lot of supports. Makes me feel like this character is not bad. Her 1v1s are really good, but I don't know. I'm just not super high on Nemesis as being like a great pick. I think she's okay. Like she doesn't get played really at all. I think she's fine. I'm gonna put her in A tier, like behind Gilgamesh, but yeah, I don't know. She's just like a bit weird. I think her ultimate being good for tanks in a tanky game, like, post 9.5 is valuable. So I don't think she's bad. She's just a bit awkward. Nike is terrible. There's way too much anti-shielding in the game. She's an immediate B tier. Her lanes are not good. Um, they're better than Guan Yu's, but she just anti-shielding and executioner, Gem of Iso, which is really strong. There's not really like a place for her. I just don't know when you'd pick Nike. Stuttering Axe is good on her, but there's characters it's better on. Not really better on. Like Achilles, it's very close. I'd argue it might be a bit better on Nike, but the laning phase, the clear at level 1 on Nike is pretty abysmal. She's just like not. She went from being such a great character in season 10 to really being poor right now. And you see next to no play of her. Nox is a mid support. Definitely better in support, but still not really great right now. Again, when I talked about supports, they typically need to be somewhat frontline-esque. She kind of does what Ganesha does, but she doesn't have the frontline presence. And I think because of that, she just has to be in the B plus tier around ESET. They function pretty similar as these backlining CC supports, and that's the best way they're played, but they're just not really in the style of the game right now. Nuwa saw some buffs to claim minions and stuff because they can proc items. I don't really think that made her that much better, but I think the fact that Nuwa just like has a very accessible and strong ultimate, and you can stack like soul gem and stuff easier does help her, and I actually think she's going to be at the bottom of S tier. I really am high on this character. I know the buffs weren't that consequential, but just her ability to clay minions have been slowly getting buffed forever. They're actually really tanky and kind of tough to deal with. But her having a stun is gigantic into a pick like Lancelot. Being able to do so much damage for free, unmissably, with an ultimate is great for engage comps, which is very much meta right now. Healing comps, for the most part, barring Aphrodite, are just about non-existent. And yeah, she does a great job. I actually think she's great. Nut is a weird character because nobody really plays her. Her pressure's great, but her dash is horrible and her ult sucks. Um, I think she's like kind of in that Izanami situation, but probably a bit better. I'm gonna put her in A tier above Apollo. Again, her pressure is good, but her safety is terrible. I think her pressure is a little bit safer and better than Izanami, but again, her safety is not good. And her ultimate, at least it's CC immune, at least it's got some range to it. It's not the worst thing in the world, but I just don't think she's great. Odin, I'm going to put an A plus tier. I think Odin is a fantastic team fighter, but his laning phases can be rough. That being said, if you can get away with the laning phase, you can be really strong. I'm going to put him in A plus. He's definitely a sleeper pick, but he is very strong. Olorun is going to go into SS tier. Olorun is insanely OP. The best ADC behind Charybdis. Definitely one of the top characters in the game. I mean, just ridiculous amounts of damage. No CC immunity. I know that's a big issue, but this character's ultimate is probably just the best ult in the game. And that magical damage that you can have from him is just like, it's such a nightmare for frontliners to deal with building defense. You don't see that kind of issue into a Freya because Freya has weaknesses in the early and mid game. Olorun is just strong from minute one right now. His pressure is insane. The damage he brings out's insane. I know from a ranked perspective you might not see this as frequently, but I promise you this character is super, super good. Um, you could argue that he needs a little bit of safety around him, and as a result, should go down a little bit. But you could play this character with like Athena, even something that doesn't peel that much, and just absolutely destroy. You just need to have good positioning. But again, this character is absurd. Such high pressure, so valuable. You play this with like a regular mage mid, and then you just put like a jungler that can just hunt people like an Erlang Shen, and you're just gonna win games off of CC alone. You have a Merlin, Olorun, Erlang Shen. You guys ban Daji, it is wraps. In Ares, it's wraps. Like there's just no way you're losing that game if you play it well. Just absolutely absurd pick. Osiris is in my mind the best solo laner in the game, and I'm gonna stand by that. So I'm gonna put him not in SS tier. He's not quite that. I'm gonna put him above Cthulhu. I realize now like how high of Cthulhu. I really did kind of phone in on where I put Cthulhu earlier. But yeah, this character is just absurdly strong. Really good sustain with Sunring X build, which I do recommend. Late game's incredible, high mitigation, super hard to kill, and just a huge pest and issue for teams to deal with. Pele has no space in Smite right now. It hurts me to say I think Dawnbringer is good. I'm gonna put her in A tier because I think she can be valuable with Serrated and Soul Eater and Blackthorn and stuff like that, but she's just not seeing play. She has a space. I don't want to say she doesn't have a space in Smite, but she's not getting the play, which really doesn't make sense. She's just like, she's pretty good, honestly, I think. But I can't put her anywhere but average, at best. And I'll put her there because I think her items are great right now. But she just doesn't really see a lot of play. Persephone, I cannot say the same for. This character is awful. I mean, she just doesn't have damage like that. The little five, you know, hit ultimate cage thing is useless for the most part. There's so many better picks to play in this game. I'm gonna throw her in B tier behind Discordia. I just don't think this character is very good. Poseidon is, well, I mean he got buffed a little bit with like the rings and stuff and Dumor being good, but I still see no play of him. I'm gonna put him at an A tier. I realize I kind of need to fluff up my A tier a little bit as well, which is nice because a lot of these characters I think are gonna fit in the A tier. But he's like pretty okay. I think he's actually decent because of like some of the buffs to items, but we just kind of have to see. Ra's really good. I think Ra's an S tier mage. I actually think Ra might be the best mage in the game right now. Really easy, secure, and buff like stealing and stuff. High pressure, slow immunity, CC immunity. Oh, obviously a lot of movement speed. Really hard to catch. And again, the secure pressure is just fantastic. Really great pick. I'm gonna put him like way up here. I really am high on Ra. I think that this is the best mage in the game. That's like an actual mage. Raijin is, he was good. I think he's kind of fallen off a good bit. Generally with your mages, if they're not secure mages, they're fight mages, right? They have a lot of shred and stuff, but Raijin's just not as safe. I think his ultimate puts him in a bad spot. I still do think he's like a good character. I'm gonna move Cuckoo down by the way a bit to like here. I think he's still good, but he's probably like in the A tier for me. Rama is going to be an A plus hunter. I think he's probably above on her. He's quite strong. Just a little bit less popular, and I think for good reason than a Hachiman or a Ishtar. A little bit less pressure, but the dive ultimate is fantastic. Obviously for that function in the game, and definitely a strong pick. Ratatasker is a global character, which I don't bet against globals, but I feel like Rat's play and frequency is kind of dampened recently. I'm not too sure why, honestly. I can't really pinpoint why. He just seems kind of average to me. I feel like he should be better, but he isn't. I don't know. Blackthorn and stuff should have helped him more, but they kind of just don't. I guess when I look at a lot of these top end picks here, they can just kind of live a rat engage, you know? And he doesn't have the best 1v1 in the world, which again, I don't think is paramount for a jungler to have a good 1v1. But I look at like characters that are good as generally being very dynamic in how they can help you win a game. You know, Camazotz can take the split push, he can take the dive on the backline, he can take the 1v1, right, in doing the split push. So he splits mid during a fire kind of stall and can win the 1v1. Reditasker can't necessarily do that. You know, he has some CC and stuff, but like, do I really like him into, you know, some of these higher end jungle picks? Not really. You know, a lot of his CC is from the stun, which is good. I'll give you that. But ultimate being a knockup, that's not that great. I don't know. He just kind of falls a little flat, which is surprising to me that I'm saying that because I'm putting him in A tier, but I almost feel like he should be higher, but I just don't know. I don't think I can put him higher. Robin is another A tier to me. I think he's good, but I don't think he's quite a Wheelix. His pressure's not as good. He's got good fight, and he's got good dive. He's like very average and strong, but again, I just don't think he's better than like a Wheelix in terms of pressure or CC value and win conditions with knockups and stuff. And Hunbats has the crazy ultimate. And then these other junglers up here are just like a tier in their own, in my opinion. Scylla's a great secure mage, but her pressures are really lacking. I think she's just kind of a victim to like being mediocre. The good secure carries her. She's kind of in that Kukulkan boat. And at least she has CC immunity, but it's just a bit risky and the pressure's low, so it kind of hurts her. Serqet's weird. I actually, like, I know this is my tier list. I think Serqet's really good, but I just don't see enough play of her. She's got high CC, she's got a lot of the workings of a Naja in her kit and stuff, but I think her ultimate being nerfed a lot. The crit value is definitely still there. I wouldn't recommend going crit, but you can go like Binding, Serrated, you know, Blackthorn or something and be a pretty tanky pest. But maybe it's just the presence of like these high CC, you know, Areses and Ganeshas and the backline kind of prowess that a lot of these supports can have, despite, you know, having diving capabilities that to me just makes Serket a little bit like when you pick her, you can sometimes just be lacking in damage. I do think she's good. I think she's got good 1v1s, obviously. But if you build her kind of tanky, you can be lacking in damage. And if you build her like crit full damage, you can also be lacking. She's in a bit of a weird spot. Like she got some buffs. I think this is one I'm kind of uncertain about. I'm putting her at the top of A. She might be A plus. But yeah, I'm just not really too sure. Set is another weird character that I'm gonna put in A tier. I think he's got, you know, obviously a great ultimate and stuff, but anti-heal's prevalent. He can't cast quite like he used to. Set mid isn't really a great thing anymore. You know, maybe with Sigil and stuff, if there was an SPL, like we might see Paul play, and maybe that changed my opinion. But without like any renowned set players consistently playing and showing how valuable this character could be, I'm kind of just left with what I see of him, and it's generally pretty forgettable. I think he's good though, and so that's why I'm still putting him in A. I do think he's good. I'm gonna put him below Rat. I think he's got a place in the meta as a jungler. You know, auto speed's like really the only person who still runs him, and he can do camps pretty quickly, like on Bull Demon King and stuff, which is valuable. But he's just like a little bit awkward again. He is a diver. He functions as a diver. It's not weak at all, but not the best pick in the world. So I'm just gonna put him in A. Shiva is cringe and lame and extremely easy. I'm gonna put him in A tier, and I wish I could put him lower. But you know, redstone and stuff is pretty effective on him. His ultimate sucks. He's worse than a Kukulkan, but I think he's actually better than Hercules. Where did I put him? Right here. I think I moved to right. Yeah, we'll put him like right here. He's just like his knockups and stuff make him that your execution to play this character well is so much easier than most characters in the game. He's kind of like the Ganesh of solo lane. Super lame, super easy, super Mickey. Really hate the character, but you know, he's got good pressure, pretty good lanes for the most part. His ultimate sucks, but you know, if his ultimate was better, he'd be like S tier. We're gonna put Scotty. She got some buffs, but I think Scotty quickly was found out to be mid, which is good. Like, I'm happy she's okay. I didn't like that she sucked. I think the fact that now she's pretty average is like a good thing for Smite. Just because she's been bad for so long, and the colder buffs and stuff definitely helped her, but she's no better than average. I'll put her below Apollo. No CC still haunts her. But you can play her in ADC with like a pen build where I think it'll be a bit more successful typically than a Chiron just because you have a little bit more fixed of a damage output. Again, this is sort of one of those picks where this was the same thing for Athena at a certain time in the meta, like a few years back, where this character just hasn't been played in so long that I think she might be getting away with a little bit more, and there's a chance she's lower in A, but she's like quite okay. And just like I think the damage, the burst damage that she has is a little like a little surprising, just a bit shocking. I think that adjustment has made her maybe potentially a bit better than she actually is. So I'm putting her here with the understanding that she might really be at the bottom of A tier. Sobek is really strong, high pressure support. Definitely an S tier support in my mind. I'm gonna put him. Do I want to put him above Athena? No, I want to put him above Ra though, and Cthulhu and Osiris. Yeah, so fourth in S tier. Really high pressure support, super strong, super easy, but actually is like, if you can play at a high level, is doubly effective. It's just a complete pest of a support character. Really good into Aphrodite, has anti-heal, so it's good into Ra, good into most backliners. Can be a bit of a cone late game in terms of like getting picked and stuff. And that's where he can become a bit of a tougher character. But you can kind of snowball a lot of matches with just the pressure he brings, and is ultimately just a really good. Soul is better, but not great. I'm gonna put her in A tier. I think kind of like Freya, the ring buffs have helped her. She's got more pressure than Freya in the early game, but I think in terms of late game value, Freya still clearly outshines her with the CC and value she brings. So Soul is, okay, but ultimately no more than okay. Sun Wukong is absolutely an S tier soul laner. I'll put him right. Do I want to do him ahead of Chalk? I do. Yeah, I definitely want to do him ahead of Chalk and Erlong. I'll put him right ahead of Naja. Yeah, this looks good. Wukong is really strong, great secure, really dynamic with how you can build him. You can go him damage, you can go him defense. Just super slippery, really big problem to play into. Very strong. Again, I don't like him as much as I think I like Cthulhu and Osiris right now, but still is absolutely up there. Again, I do want to reiterate for like the 10th time because I know people are going to mention it. I kind of missed the boat on Cthulhu on the tier list. I'm sorry about that. My bad, folks. Sometimes we make mistakes. I did also a little bit on the Ygorm. I don't feel as bad though because when I made the thing, Bologna and Amma had just like they just got hit a little bit like right after. So I made it on the patch before. So forgive me for that. Surtur, I just posted a video on. The video's been doing great. Thank you guys for that. But he's a great pressure pick, but he's a bit of a cone late game. I'm going to put him in A tier. I don't think he actually functions as well in team fights as King Arthur or Achilles does. And despite having like similar, if not slightly better lanes than both of them, his fall off is a little bit more measurable. That being said, I think he's like worse than Mulan probably, because he functions to some of the weaknesses, but he is quite strong still in terms of a laning phase presence. Just doesn't have the range that Mulan like Grapple has, and he's fine, but just not the best pick in the world right now. I still like him more than Kukulkan though, for sure. Susano is a counter pick that's kind of fallen out of the meta a bit. I'm gonna put him in A tier, and this is the first time I put Susano in A tier in a very long time. I like him not actually too much right now. I don't know. I'm gonna put him in between Mulan and Surtur. I think, the lack of CCMU Ultimate has hurt him. I think how bad he is in Tadaji and Camazotz and Lancelot has hurt him a lot. One thing you have to factor in is like, especially in jungle, what am I going to be playing against? And if their jungler can constantly get flanks and split mid and create imbalances, and I as a jungler can't win that 1v1 back, that's a big issue. And Susano typically kind of can't into some of these high-end junglers, and that is a big problem, obviously, because he's considered this 1v1 character, and, it's just not that feasible all the time anymore. Sylvanas is a dual in pressure bot. The healing is nice, but he can get sectioned off and pick pick, excuse me, really easily. I think he's A tier. He's better than like a Karen in my mind. He's better than a Shiva in my mind. Not better than a Kukulkan. I'll put him right here. I think he's pretty average. Terra is very good. I'm going to put her in SS tier. This character is insane. The ultimate buffs have really helped her. I'm going to put her above Oleron. Do I want to do this? I think I do. She's better than Sobek. She's good into Sobek. She's better than Athena, I think, generally speaking. Again, this might be more of a competitive pick than anything, but the short ultimate cooldown is just ridiculous. Her pressure is really good in the very early game, which is the most important part for dual lane typically, and just the healing and stuff that you have on her, just you can't go wrong with. AoE auto attacks in the early as well helps her pressure. Fight's really strong. There are some picks that can do well into her, like Baron Samedi, but ultimately she is just like very, very powerful, and the walls are fantastic for um, sectioning off a lot of these backliners as well. Thanatos is a high flying execute pick. I don't know how I feel about Thana. Like in ranked, he's such a good stomper. In competitive, he's still very strong. He got a couple of nerfs. I don't think they killed him. But I think maybe just the Blackthorn meta and a lot of these junglers that are on this higher end being able to cast on him pretty easily, and he doesn't have a lot of fight back into them, probably puts him in the higher end of A tier. Again, he's kind of like Susano, where he's just a super high damage volatile assassin. And it's not that he's bad or anything, but the level of risk you incur with playing a playstyle like that can oftentimes like really do you in. And the execute is like fantastic. Um, but again, I think you can just kind of get caught. Anti-heal is really easy to build right now. And I know I have Ra way up here, but there's something different when Ra's healing can be very much out of combat focus to sustain tanks and stuff, where Thanatos' healing is happening in the fray when he's actively being anti-healed. And as a result, I think A tiers is where I'll put him. Again, in ranked, would I put him higher for sure? The Morrigan is not good right now. Yeah, she's just not good right now. Her builds don't really fit too much. I know Doom Orb is good on her, but I just don't really know where you can fit her into a draft. I think double Cthulhu's double dodgies like give her some viability, so I'll put her at the top of B plus. But if it wasn't for those like OP transformation potentials, she just has nothing else going for her. So you're picking her only for a transform, which is kind of always what you picked Mori for. But she just doesn't really like. I don't know. She's just kind of niche. Again, B plus is like you can make it work, but it's just kind of awkward. Thor is a S tier jungler for sure. He's very much underplayed because he's difficult and just not that popular, but Thor is way up here. I'm gonna put him right above OC, I think. Do I want to? I might even put him higher. This is tough. Thor's such a weird pick because he's really good. His 1v1s aren't that great, but the amount of CC he provides from a distance and from a range that like something like Serket can't do is immeasurable. The global is so impactful and powerful and just like a better version of Rattle in every way. Um, I think I like S tier. I mean, he's really good into Lancelot. I like him more than Camo. I like if I think about it, I like him more than Camo. I'm gonna put him right there. We're finally getting to like the two. I said Ra was probably like the best mage. I think I was lying. I kind of forgot about these two, not gonna lie. These are like two of some of the best mages in the game. These are both S tier locks, absolutely. Do I want to put Thoth above Ra? He's less safe. He has higher damage potential, but he's less utility. I'm actually gonna put him right below Ra just because I think Thoth is riskier. And ultimately, I really do value versatility on a character. I've talked about this a lot, obviously, already today, so I'm not gonna harken on it too much, but great secure. Secure is an icebreaker for team fights and fire giants and stuff, which, you always need some kind of a way to get something going. Great poke, much better poke than Ra. I'll give you that. But the risk, assessed to the character can be a problem. He is still very strong, and the secure is extremely impactful. But just for the risk alone, I'm going to put him right behind Ra because you can still play poke with Ra as long as you have some support CC and you can kind of like get a Sobek pluck, do some damage, all that stuff. Just throw a blind Rot Snip sometimes to get some damage through like some word vision and stuff. So I'll put Thoth right below. I think at the highest level competitive, I think this is maybe a bit of a scramble, but Raj's just a bit more dynamic and safe, and I do value that like hugely. Even if Thoth's one dimension that he plays in is so potent that you could argue he exceeds Ra in most facets, and because of that, I think it's a toss-up, and it's just a matter of opinion. Tiamat is very good, like really up here as well. I'm obviously a huge fan of this character, my favorite mage in the game. Doesn't have secure, but the safety from this character, the tablet builds that you can go are very slow, but once you get them online, you are just a god. I think her late game is comparable to Thoth, if not better, but the early game is just super slow. So that's the only fall off of her. You can go like a Karen's Coin timeline build instead, which is a little bit better in the early, but no matter what, Tiamat's is super broken late game character that just takes some time to get online. Very strong though, definitely deserving an S tier. Tsukiyomi is A plus jungler, I think. He's quite strong. He can also be played in solo. I don't think he's quite an S tier, just because I don't know. I just like these S tier junglers a little bit more. I think they provide a bit more. Tsukiyomi is a hard dive character without the safety of a Camazotz. His safety is still okay, and he's got great range, but he's just like a slightly worse Camazotz to me. And yeah, definitely good though. And it is nice that he is flexible into solo lane just like Camazotz is. So definitely a strong pick. I'm gonna put him like right here. He's also flexible to mid and ADC, which maybe makes him deserving of S tier, but I'm just not quite sure I can put him in that tier just yet. Speaking of tiers, we're gonna put tier in A tier. That was a little spin for you. He's kind of very similar to Gilgamesh in his issues, and that's just that he's pretty situational, but he can really excel. Normally, I put these super situational guys in B plus, but his strength and ability to be strong when I put him above Hercules is really like potent, and he can be a very good character. I'm actually gonna put him like right here. I think. Do I put a tier above Shiva? Mm, maybe I do. Maybe I do. I'm gonna put tier above Shiva. Oh, Tears like when he's got a good game, he's insane, and when he's got a bad game, he's not good, but he can still at least be playable with the CC he brings. So he's pretty average to me. Again, he's got some games he's S tier, he's got some games he's B tier. It kind of is like usually no in between, but you pick him late, he'll be pretty good. He's pretty average though overall. Uller sucks now. The Transcendence nerfs have gutted this character. Bluestone nerfs with Transcendence and Jotuns, all that stuff has gutted this character in ADC. Mid lane hunters just really don't provide too much value. I don't want to say he sucks. Maybe that was a little too harsh, but I'm going to put him at the bottom of eights here. I don't think he's much better than that. Vamana, he's like a very big shield character, kind of like Nike. His lanes are okay, but he's very cheesy, and ultimately like he won't excel against people who aren't. Also, I think I just moved this out of the way. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I had him there. Um, yeah, he ultimately won't do good in good lobbies. That's just like the truth about Vamana. What is going on with my thing here? I'm trying to move Vamana down to B plus. Here we go. Yeah, he won't do good in good lobbies. The anti-shielding is a big issue. Definitely way better than Nike, but yeah, not a super great pick. Definitely would not recommend. Vulcan's really good right now. The turret buff has helped him. He's able to kite a lot. I think he's super strong. Um, no CC immunal does hurt. Do I put him in the Tiamat, Ra, Thoth, Nuwa category? I think so, but not by much. I'm gonna put him above Mammon and Hachi and Amma and Bologna. Do I like him more than Yoram? Maybe. I think that's a fine spot. Great secure, fantastic ultimate, like I mentioned, and secure. A really good lane pressure, and the soul gem stuff is pretty ridiculous now with the turret. Xbalanque has no space in the meta, unfortunately. His ultimate's still good, but just doesn't really have a good spot in the game right now. I'm gonna put him at the top of, not the top of, like the middle of B plus, probably behind his Izanami. Just doesn't really have a good spot right now in the game. Jing Chen was really good in solo lane. I think nerfs have hurt him big time to conduit and stuff. He just doesn't really have pressure. And then functioning as a, where was Odin? Like this keeps happening. I apologize. Did I put Odin above those two? I should have. We'll just put like him here. Again, the order doesn't matter too much. As long as they're in the tier, I don't really care all that much. We'll put Jing Chen in like A tier. I think he's still okay in support and stuff. He just like his HP 5 and stuff is good. It just he doesn't really have a spot in solo, so you're playing him in support typically, and that's not too great. We'll put him like above above Bastet maybe. I'll put him above Hercules. Yeah, that seems like a good spot. Yamoja's really weird to rate because I actually don't know where I like her right now. She's obviously like a backline support, which we've talked about the weaknesses. Really bad into like Baron Samedi, really bad into a lot of picks. Competitively, is she incredible? Of course. I think her time has passed though. Finally, it took like 3 years of nerfing and just a lot of meta changes. Yamoja still at the highest level can be played very well, but in a lot of ways she functions pretty similarly to a Geb in the current meta. Just being this late game pressure, lower pressure pick, definitely better pressure than Gab, but not really a great frontline presence. Still very strong in some facets. I'll put her in A plus tier. Ymir is solely a counter pick and can function very well as one, but if he doesn't get it going, like if the counter picks aren't there, I think of counter picks where Ymir can excel. Characters without leaps and stuff like Amaterasu can be really good into. This character just kind of runs into the issue that he just gets picked off cooldown at most games, kind of similar to Gabrakan, but just a bit worse. I think he is B plus because his value in some games is actually incredible. It just you really sadly don't get to see it a lot. Like into Thoth, into Rai can be very good, but conversely can just get picked. Yu Huang to me is like the definition of like an average mid laner. He's like such a quintessential A tier character to me right now that like this is like the perfect point of balance for a mage right now. I think he's so average. His fight is good, but it's not incredible. His pressure is good, but it's not incredible. He's got a fantastic dash. His ultimate's kind of inconsistent, but can be really strong. Definitely a difficult pick, but super even and balanced, and ultimately I think yeah, just like fine. Again, probably don't ever need to play him though. Zeus is pretty horrible. I don't know why you would play Zeus right now. Um, if you build some defense and stuff, can you cast? I guess so, but I just don't see a big reason to play him. I like him more than Discordia and Shanghai, I think, because I think you build some defense, you go timeline, you can actually do like pretty good as like a bait, sort of like what you would do with like a Hell mid in theory, but you just have way more damage. I don't know though. I just don't really see a point of ever picking Zeus. I put Hell by the way above because I'm valuing Hell support here as like the higher thing, not Hell mid. Zhang Kui Jean-Quy actually, this is always the last guy on the tier list. Jean-Quy is actually, I think, quite good. Mannequins and stuff can be really good on him in like these cheesy ADC builds. Again, I've typically only seen them in ranks, but his pressure is actually through the roof. You can play him in mid. His protections and his passive is really strong. Doom can be quite good on him. You could go a Sack Shroud build and still be pretty effective. I don't know if he's great, but I think he's definitely average. And is probably a bit of a sleeper pick. I think he's just a better Chang'e if you want to play that kind of mid lane engage playstyle, and we're gonna throw him right ahead of like Arachne, I guess, just somewhere in the middle of A tier. And look, that's our tier list. So we'll call it Snatty's tier list. I don't know if I can publish this, but that is our tier list. I know there was a lot of yapping there. I know there was a lot of talking. I'm going to probably post this very soon. Let me know how you guys feel about it. I understand this might be controversial, but feel free to discuss with me. Some things are definitely like I could probably be swayed on, but I think generally speaking, the order might be a little bit off, but the idea of like this character is in this tier absolutely sits right with me for all of this. So yeah, I'm excited to know what you guys think. Please let me know. Again, this is a matter of opinion. I am solo laner. You could argue that there's some things that I see a little bit differently and more problematically than some people in other roles, but this is kind of how I view it. Again, let me know what you think. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I really appreciate it. Peace, peace.